Horrified Greek Monsters, Mycelia, and The Adventures of Robin Hood. This is Staying In.
Imagine if we charged for this. Just imagine.
We'd make some enemies.
I doubt we'd even get above the tax threshold.
This is our way of just putting our toe in the water. If you think you'd like to pay for it, let us know.
For just £2 a month, you too could be part of the Staying In crew.
No, it's a Staying In family, Sam. We're a family here.
Sorry, Staying In family. For that price, you get a newsletter, hilarious behind-the-scenes content, and a sneak peek into
Chris's life.
Oh, good Lord.
The fact of the matter is, if we did charge for this, I think we'd have to start this show by saying that you are legitimately getting less for your money on this episode because one of us is
less of a man.
Is less of a man
Wow.
than they were.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Look, Kris, I'm not saying testosterone comes from your appendix.
No.
Or what I would call the essence of man.
But Dan is.
I would say exactly that. I've often thought that. That's going to be on my tombstone. The appendix is the essence of man.
Good Lord. Well, thankfully, my masculinity isn't that fragile.
Oh, good. Well, it's all gone, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't break it if it's gone.
Yeah.
So you broke it.
Right. So, Kris, obviously we're just having a laugh.
Of course.
We really care about your health and well-being.
Yeah.
You've been in the hospital.
I have indeed, yeah.
But now you're well.
Yeah.
Well enough to lie in a bed and record at least at home.
Yeah.
Which is good. So, what went down? Tell us the story.
Okay.
Trigger warning may include details of surgery, but I don't know.
So I thought I pulled a muscle in my groin.
All right, show off.
Just by walking.
All right, okay. Oh, thanks.
And I rang my GP, had a consultation, and I went in, and they said, look, it's probably not appendicitis, but just on the off chance it is, I'm going to refer you to a surgeon at hospital this afternoon. Oh, and by the way, I went to the GP, also checked my prostate.
Oh, good. 2 for 1.
Something very, very important. So for any of our listeners who are male and in their 30s, make sure you get your prostate checked. Very, very important. Mine's great, apparently.
Did he really say that?
Whoa, Kris, well done, sir.
It said it's absolutely fine.
Come in here. Come here, everyone. He's got a great one.
Yeah,
Come
he didn't
on.
say it's great.
Yeah, it's like a Lego tyre.
Did he thank you after he was finished? Like, thank you for that. I really needed that.
No, but it's really important to get that checked.
Nothing to do with the procedure.
No.
Just while you're here.
While you're here, doctor. So then I went to the hospital and they gave me a CT scan and they said, look, yeah, it is appendicitis. This thing needs to kind of come out. So I got essentially prepped for surgery. I was in quite a lot of discomfort by that point. The NHS staff are brilliant, and they were brilliant. And I was excited about the prospect of, going under, because I'd never had that before, that experience. And it was all brilliant. I woke up and I spent 2 days in hospital kind of recovering. Obviously, very difficult to kind of maneuver around and walk, but I could walk and stuff, thankfully. The really weird thing was that they put me in this bed, and because you're lying down for a long period of time, they're obviously worried about like DVT and things like that. So what they do is they kind of wrap your legs in what feel like blood pressure monitors, like round your kind of calves. And these things are kind of just pulsing around your thighs. So if I wanted to get up in the night to go to the bathroom, I used to have to ring the bell and say, can you unplug my feet, please?
Did they not give you one of those little cardboard boxes?
You mean, the cardboard salt cellar? No, my brother went into hospital apparently, and he just kept using the same one repeatedly. And my dad was like, that's cardboard, Lawrence.
For years, every time he went in.
So I was just kind of just sat in hospital. I hadn't packed anything to go to the hospital. My partner had to just go and grab stuff and just throw it in a bag for me. And I just spent 2 days in bed. I know it sounds really silly, because, the operation is so routine. Like I think it's something like 50,000 people kind of per year, I think, have an appendix operation. It's so routine. It's so routine that almost you feel like you're going for a drive-through. Like there's no novelty with me and this operation. It's so boring and pedestrian. But I tell you what, the Rice Krispies I had the next day for breakfast were the best Rice Krispies I had ever had. And they even put sugar on top. Oh, it was so good.
Oh,
and I'm still having them for breakfast now.
Decadent.
I spent my time just watching stuff. Dan, when they were changing my dressings, I was watching The Bear. I thought, why not?
That's quite an intense show. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to be doing when you're recuperating.
Actually, I find it quite relaxing. It's easy going because it's fly on the wall. You kind of feel like, I'm just looking through the windows of this restaurant here. This is so really quite a really lovely, really good show.
All right, so let's dedicate this entire episode to The Bear.
I've only watched 3 eps, but 4 episodes. But it is really, really good. I watched a lot of Abbott Elementary. You know, you get those series occasionally which you start watching, you forget about them. And then when you're in a situation where you've got no Wi-Fi and you look at, oh God, are there any episodes I've got downloaded? Oh, here's Abbott Elementary, which I downloaded like a year or so ago for a flight that I never got round to, or a train journey.
Yeah, Abbott Elementary's all right.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. It's not, again, it's that sort of thing. It's the perfect thing to watch when, you know, you're kind of still groggy from anaesthetic. You don't really want to focus on something too much because, you know, you're constantly getting checked, your blood pressure's getting checked. They're kind of giving you more morphine and painkillers and stuff. So it's the perfect kind of telly for that. It really is. I watched Godzilla -1.
Okay, good.
While I was in bed, and I know you spoke about that in the last pod. It's quite lovely that you were speaking about that in the recording at the same time that I was recovering from surgery. Yeah. I was watching it almost the same time you were recording, which was quite lovely. That was a lot of fun. A question I want to ask you, though, was how was my stag?
Oh, yes, of course. Burying the lead ever so slightly is the fact that because you were in hospital, you couldn't attend your own stag.
Yeah.
So we made the decision, and it was unanimous. Not one single person said no. That we were gonna plow on without.
Not one of us thought that Kris was important enough to miss the event. So we said no. We all value us getting together drinking more than Kris.
I think it was at the moment I said, sorry everyone, I've checked, everything's non-refundable.
You're not getting your money back.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And because most of us were parents, I think they also thought, hang on, this is my weekend.
This is not just Chris's weekend.
The stag was good. It was good. Everyone was fed and was watered. We went to the viral, the TikTok famous kebab house in Llangollen,
where Sam got to live out one of his dreams of ordering a comedic amount of pizzas.
Yeah, basically being that guy in Home Alone. Coming in with like a pile of pizzas that I couldn't see behind.
It always crashes into the statue.
Yeah, it was great. We ordered so many pizzas that Deliveroo couldn't handle it.
Yeah, my dad was telling me this. He's like, surely it would be the reverse. We're not willing to deliver for anything less than this.
I rang them up and they were just like, no,
our scooter can't take this.
You're gonna have to collect. And then we went on the town and it was lovely. Stumbled across a bluegrass group that I bought you a t-shirt for, Kris.
I've got my t-shirt of that, yeah.
Went to a bar that sold pot noodles.
I mean, ding dong, tick, tick, tick. That sounds an amazing stag.
It's perhaps my one regret that I didn't buy a pot noodle there.
Yeah, I didn't see them. If I saw them, I would have bought them, but I just heard about it afterwards that they had pot noodles behind the bar.
That's
a bit
amazing.
gutted, to be honest. Because I quite like the novelty of sitting in a pub and having a hot savoury meal.
Yeah, and it feels like, you know what, that's actually a really good idea. Like, I'm not saying that they're the most kind of nutritious of foodstuffs.
Yeah.
But kind of like very quick, very easily, fills a small hole in your tum-tum, but it'll do that job. And then no washing up afterwards.
I mean, can you imagine the image of them just, stick it under the coffee machine with the hot water just comes out.
I'll take the soy sauce, please.
So one of the things I was doing whilst recuperating, I was well enough to do this, was to play some cooperative games. And typically, I play a lot of these with my partner. She tends to prefer cooperative games. Obviously, Sam, you and I play several of these. We've got Jaws of the Lion still on the go. We've been playing that for a number of years.
So is this board game, tabletop?
Yeah, this is a tabletop board game, yes. We've been playing kind of cooperatively. And one we've been playing for a few months now, which we've been dipping into periodically, playing a chapter of, is a game that we were sent very kindly from Kosmos. And it comes from designer and artist, that incredible double threat there, Michael Menzel, and it's The Adventures of Robin Hood.
Okay, all right, okay. This is interesting because
It is.
Is that's the same chap who did Legends of Andor, right?
I believe so, yes, which is a game that you and I love, and it is that same sweet spot, Sam, of a family weight cooperative adventure game.
Andor certainly was. I like a massive soft spot for Andor. Andor is just a really special game, I think, definitely for like younger players and families, because it does such an excellent job of teaching the game and introducing it, but also making it feel like it really is telling a story and how thematic it is.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
It's really good. So what is Robin Hood just a bit like Andor, just with a bit of a different skin, or?
I think the spirit of Andor remains there, very much so, and obviously you've kind of got the same art style there, which is gorgeous. So you put together this big board that's made up of, I think it's about eight big thick jigsaw pieces that you slot together, and it basically eclipses, if not fills, a coffee table, let's say, typical coffee table. So it's very impressive on there. And I would describe it a little bit like Andor, a legacy game without the faff.
Yes. Yeah.
So sometimes sometimes legacy games, they can be quite unwieldy, and it's an event in itself to go back to it, and it's an event in itself in setting it up and reminding yourself of the rules. The Adventures of Robin Hood, yes, it is a lighter game than some of those big games like Jaws of the Lion, say, for example, but it has a very elegant mechanic that is so beautiful and thematic that, like, Dan, when your eldest gets to about 8 years old, how old's your eldest, Dan?
6. He's 6 now.
6, yeah. So in about 2 years' time or so, a game like this, or a Legends of Andor in particular, be perfect for you, because I know it sounds really silly, but do you remember when you were a kid and at Christmas time there would be a chocolate box and you get really frustrated when all the ones you like have gone, and then you suddenly remember, oh my God, an idiot, there's a second layer beneath this. I'd forgotten was there. This gives you that sensation each time, because it does that thing that that legacy games do really, really well. So picture Pandemic Legacy, where there's these boxes there in the box that are waiting to be opened. Now imagine you've got that, but it's in the board itself. So there's stuff that's just in this board, and I'm not just talking about like the sticker thing you overlay like you get in Pandemic Legacy, say, for example. There's just stuff in this board, like micro macro style, that I've just not noticed until it's pointed out to me. And I go, oh my God, that was there the whole time. Oh my, I didn't even notice that. Like we were playing a game of it the other day, and my partner was like, oh, I wonder if it's, no, it can't be that clever, surely, but I wonder if we go here, that this would be the case. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, brilliant. And to have a game that is as clever as you think it is wonderful. But I'm burying the lead here. Adventures of Robin Hood, player count 1 to 4. Each game takes about 60 minutes, but it depends. If you're playing with a family, I think that's quite fair. I think me and my partner, and we can get through some chapters quite quickly if we're quite lucky. And it's Robin Hood. It's that kind of classic myth. I think it's one of the few myths the English have, really.
Yeah.
Or folk tales, let's say, that we've not co-opted from the Irish, the Welsh, or the Scots. England, 1193. Robin Hood and his merry men are building a revolution against Prince John and his sidekick, Sir Guy of Gisborne. And as I said, you play it in a series of chapters. And you get a mission, basically, each time you play. You've got to do this before the time runs out. The time is at the bottom of there. You've literally got hourglasses there. And once the last of those hourglasses goes, that's it. It's game over. Or kind of in a lot of cooperative games, if the land loses hope, that slider gets to 0. That's another way in which you lose the game. So there's a kind of an embedded clock there. And you can kind of do things to kind of lengthen that kind of experience somewhat. The cool thing about this game, if you look very carefully into it, it's a thick board, because there are little bits of geographical features and people that you can literally take out of the board and slot back in. You can turn them over and slot them back in, almost like an advent calendar. But rather than it being like doors, you're physically taking these flat pieces out and putting stuff in, and there's stuff underneath them. And the board is full of these kinds of things, really. And the kind of USP of this game is that it comes with an actual book. I'm not talking, when we say rules book, what we're talking about really is kind of like almost like a leaflet or a brochure or a pamphlet. No, this is a book. It's a hardback book. And so when you open it up, page 1, so you can literally just...
The crack of the book as you open it.
Oh, yeah. Page 1. And it's really funny. My partner and I today, we were talking about Robin Hood. I was thinking, oh, gosh, do you know what? I've not watched Disney's Robin Hood in a while.
Yeah.
It's probably been about 30 years since I've watched that. And it begins with that storybook, Robin Hood, and it feels a bit like that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And so you open it up and you can start playing straight away. As it's teaching you the game, you're doing the setup. So you can literally just pick it up and play. And it has these bookmarks in it. So what you do is you just, if you need to remember the rules, you'll have one bookmark that's left there. And the mission you're on, you can use the other bookmark there, and it'll tell you where to leave the bookmarks. So when I go and play the next chapter, I go, okay, where were we? Okay, here we go. Let's begin. And it has some of the best kind of design in terms of symbology, in terms of how it communicates stuff to you. And some of that stuff I just discovered while playing. Like, where's this again? Oh, hang on, look, there's a reference here on the back of the book. I didn't even notice that. Brilliant. Perfect. So the book kind of leads you through these things. And essentially your missions are, each of you picks a character. One of you has to be Robin Hood, but you can also be, somebody else can be Maid Marian, Will Scarlet, I think Little John. And you're having to move across the board. And when you get to certain sections, there are numbers. And what you do when you get there is you can look up that number in your book. You can find the mission that you are particularly planning on. It points you to another section of the book. And then you're basically given choice, and you read that choice out to the other partner, and that affects the outcome of what you can get. So it's very RPG in that sense.
I was going to say, it sounds a little bit almost like a choose your own adventure type thing.
Yeah,
by the sounds of it, like a cross between like the choose your own adventure books with the board game aesthetic.
Yeah, and this isn't a spoiler because you can kind of see it when you look at that section. There is a point where you make a choice, and that choice means that there will be 3 chapters of this game that you will not experience because of the choice you've made. But there will be 3 chapters you now will experience because of this choice you made. And it's kind of after the 3rd mission or so you do this.
So what I find quite interesting about this as a proposition is bringing some tactility to what sounds like a choose your own adventure game. So usually when we've covered stuff like this, like I'm sure Pete will hate me to say this, but he's not here tonight, so
go for it.
Like Alone Against the Frost is like a bit of a choose your own adventure game with some like light RPG elements, and there's some dice rolling, and but mostly choose your own adventure games are stuff that you will just do in your head, and like the game is trying to pick the right route through the story. So how does that tactility, how does that like board gaminess of it work with what just sounds like just a very literal and literary choose your own adventure game? You
become patently aware that you can't do everything, that you're going to have to make some difficult choices. And that's basically summed up by how you move through the game. So each of you, when you're playing your character, so say for example Dan is Robin Hood.
As always,
Dan will get 5 game pieces that are green. These lovely wooden pieces, very tactile. 2 of them look identical. They're a standing figure of Robin Hood. But the other 3 look like you've kind of got the figure, but then there's almost like this door stop coming off the back of them, like a novelty door stop. 2 of those are the same length, kind of like a medium length, and 1 is very long. That is how you map your movement. So say if Dan starts on a particular part of the board, he can only move as far if he can make a direct route with those figures connected to each other, almost like in the Arkham games, when Batman's going back through the crime, you see a person moving through space and you can see lots of different moments of them in quick succession. It's like that. Or there's kind of Edward Muybridge kind of photographs of horses running, in a line.
Yeah.
But you can't obviously go through buildings. You have to go around. You have to be very careful. And that's how you can only move as far as that. But here's an interesting wrinkle, because on top of all this game is a bag builder. So there's no dice, there are no cards, everything is determined by a bag. So at the beginning of the game, the colour of your particular figure is a disc which goes in the bag. Added into it is a red disc, which is not good, that's for the enemies, and a purple disc, which is for Sir Guy of Gisborne, who is patrolling around the map, and a bit like the bouncers in Burgle Brothers, will always move towards, not the closest alarm, but the closest player. You'll get a white disc, which allows both players to take an extra go, and you get a grey disc where one player can take an extra go. They're all in this bag. So when you're pulling a disc out of the bag, you don't know if it's going to be one of yours or an enemy's one. So that's the kind of wrinkle there, really. And that when you get that grey disc, who should get the extra go? Well, actually, I think you should, because Sir Guy Gisborne's going to catch up with you if we draw the purple one next. If you are in shade and you're moving around the board, you're safe. But if you are in an open space and there is a guard tile that's been flipped up there and a red disc is drawn, they've seen you. So you're having to move from the shadows. So you generally feel like you're this kind of rebellion that are skulking in the shadows. But of course, that affects your movement. Do I play it safe and just keep moving to the shadows? But you can take out the guards. And the way you take out the guards is you go into the bag again, but you're not drawing discs, you're drawing cubes. And you draw up to 3 cubes. If you draw at least 1 white cube, you stop drawing, and that means there's a success. But when you start the game, there are more purple cubes in that bag. And each time that purple disc is drawn, a purple cube gets put in there.
And can you add white cubes?
How do you put white cubes in the bag? The way you do that is by not using your long figure. So if you do not sprint ahead, that allows you to put a white cube in the bag. So me and my partner are thinking, okay, I'm just going to spend a few goes skulking ever so slightly to the shadows, adding more white cubes in that bag, so we can pounce at this particular moment and we can rob that treasure wagon that is going through the forest, because we've got this one goal now. We've chopped down the tree, we can pin it, but we need to ensure we've got a good amount of cubes to give us a good chance. And you get this lovely arrow, Sam, this thick arrow which you use as a measure. I can take him out from here. I can take them out from here.
That's cool.
And there's also a bit like Andor with the little weapons and tools. You may find like an old crone or a wizard or a merchant in the forest, and you'll get like a bow or a sword, which gives you extra bonuses. A horn, for example, allows you to, when you pull out a disc, you can put it back in the bag and draw a new one, say, for example. But the point is, there is stuff on that board we never accessed because we knew we only had so much time to do it. Now, with more players, you may be thinking, well, that's going to make it boring. But what tends to happen in the game is you get an extra mission if you have more players, kind of like a subplot, which is even more exciting, really. We're having a great time with this game. We really, really are. There's a nice kind of difficulty kind of adjustment you can make early doors if you want to make it light and enjoyable, where like at a certain point you'll get an extra white disc in the bag, or a grey disc, in the bag to complement the extra purple disc that goes in the bag. But that's it in a nutshell. I don't really want to talk about specifics in terms of respective missions or plots, that sort of thing. But like, it's a very cleverly designed game. There's lots of stuff hidden in that map that I know we've not spotted yet.
On kind of that point, because you touched on the idea that you have these kind of components within the board, like the numbered components. not sure whether those are things that you kind of lift out or if they're kind of tabs to lift up. Is there an element of, I'm thinking in terms of replayability, is there an element of once you've seen those, you lose an aspect of the game? So if you think of something like the exit games, so obviously those are designed to be played just once, and obviously this isn't that, but is there an element once you've seen what's underneath some of these tabs or kind of under some of these layers, that when you play it next time you lose an aspect of that play experience? Or is there enough variety in terms of what you're getting from the book as well, that is allowing you to have a new experience each time?
It's really interesting. I mean, maybe it's because my memory's really crap at the moment when playing stuff like this, but I honestly don't remember. So, for example, when you take out a guard, you lift them up, peek underneath, and see what reward you get, and that might be to increase the hope or to get an additional bonus. It might be that you'll get a weapon or an object of some sort, but then you cover it back up straight away. So you can't really remember what's there because there's so many things to flip up and reverse, like so many guards, so many features. Generally it's easy to forget what's there really because the board is so big. It's a bit like Free Card Monte. Like there's a mechanic in the game where there are seals in the box which you draw out and you put them into these recesses at the top, and that tells you which tiles need to be flipped. So suddenly you may find that in a space that was empty is now full of guards because you just flipped them over by chance, or the guards that you were trying to avoid have disappeared. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, right, how long? I've got at least one more round before they may reappear again when the next seal is drawn, when that next red disc is drawn. The issue I'm finding at the moment is that we're starting to get a little bit of scuffs. So, you know, the more tiles you flip and repeat, you're getting your nail under there, you're pulling the things out. There is a worry. You know, it's the same with like a deck builder where the cards start to get scuffed on the edges. There's a little bit of worry about that. You know, it's a game that's going to see a lot more wear and tear than others because of, you know, its setup really. And I don't know how you would avoid that really. There's nothing you can buy. You can't do the equivalent of sleeving cards that's going to avoid that. However, unlike a deck builder where actually seeing a mark on a card might be unfortunate because you may now recognize what that card is, it doesn't have any bearing here. It just may run the risk of stuff falling out if it's not necessarily fitting in properly. But we are taking the kind of utmost care because I'd really like you guys to play it because I think it's such a wonderful kind of an event that we kind of look forward to. The only other thing I wanted to mention that we've been playing, sticking with that cooperative feed, was Horrified Greek Monsters.
Okay.
Which is the third in the series from Ravensburger. Have you played Horrified, Dan?
No. You've been really into your scary stuff of late, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Like I was so gutted I missed Sam talking about The Haunting of Hill House because I'm so thrilled you watched it because it is generally one of my favourite series of all time. But that's
special. There's
something about Horrified that just works, and it works really, really well. Age range wise, I don't know what age it kind of sits with really.
I mean, I think it all depends kind of which kind of Horrified you go for. Like when we spoke about the first one like a couple of years ago now, episode 163. I think that original Horrified, where you got like Dracula and the Swamp Thing and, you know, the Wolf Man, I think it skews a little bit younger. I think the next one, American Monsters, was probably dealing a little bit more in, I think some of the horrific elements were a little bit stronger in American Monsters.
I'd say so. I really love kind of Greek mythology, Greek myths. You know, unlike the English where we've got Robin Hood, the Greeks have got some banging myths and tales.
Yeah, absolute smashers.
So this comes from Michael Mullerhill and from Ravensburger, and play a count. You can play it by yourself, 1 to 5. I typically play it 2 to 3. And I think it scales up quite well with the difficulty of number of players. And basically the premise of Horrified is you've got a board which is a kind of a world which is kind of jigsawed together from that kind of shared universe. So for the case of the original Horrified, it was all these different landscapes from those respective IPs kind of merging together. Here you've kind of got like a kind of a mythic ancient Greece where the players are avatars of Greek gods, and we've got to work together to imprison monsters of this period, this kind of world. And generally speaking, each monster will be moving around the board, heading towards the nearest player to attack them. And we have got to collectively kind of join forces to try and strategically find a way to kind of take out each monster. And each monster has a particular way of how you dispatch of it, really. So in this game, and I love, what I love about Horrified is that the way in which you dispatch the monsters is so thematically linked to the respective creature itself. So, for example, in the original Horrified, it was Dracula. You had to find all of Dracula's coffins and destroy them before you took down the big bad, which makes sense thematically. That's how you do it. In Horrified Greek Monsters, which came out last year, you've got the Siren, where you have to compose a counter song to take it down. The Basilisk, you have to pierce it with specific items blessed by the gods. You've got Medusa, where you have to build a mirror trap spatially across the board. Cerberus, you've got to unlock the door to the underworld, so you've got this separate map, and you've got to use the dice to actually roll them to find the right combination for the different parts of it, which is very clever, using the dice in this particular manner. The Chimera, you've got to put each of its heads to sleep. And in the Minotaur, you actually have to build the labyrinth. And you would never play a game with all of these monsters in play. Well, you could, but you probably wouldn't win. Typically, you play 2 to 3 monsters. And again, you've got that replayability. Well, should we try it with, I don't know, Cerberus, Medusa, and the Basilisk this time round? And the game, as always, if Horrified, gives you a recommended setup. Now, aside from the theme, and aside from the design of the board, it looks really cool, that kind of heightened, kind of classical, kind of mythic, kind of Greece aesthetic. There is nothing new here, and I am fine with that. My partner and I and my future sister-in-law, we played Horrified and Horrified Greek Monsters back to back.
Awesome.
Which was great. Not because we wanted to necessarily do a comparison, but actually we thought, we really like that. Let's play it again, but now let's just do the same thing again, but with a different kind of IP. One thing that Horrified Greek Monsters does, which is different, is it has these things called layers. So it might be that actually, I'll say things like, okay, we need to unlock the door to the underworld. So when we were doing the setup, we were looking around the board and we're like, well, hang on, where's the underworld? Where is it? It's not on the board. And that's because what you've got is these kind of tiles, these layers, which you shuffle and deal into certain areas of the board. One of them out of these 4 will be the underworld, but before you can do anything, you need to find the underworld. So that adds an extra layer of problem solving, where you're having to kind of manage each other, thinking, well, okay, right, well, I've not got enough of this item here, so I'm not very good over it, even though I'm right near to where it would be great, be great for doing this. I haven't got enough items to do it, so can you come over here and do that? And it genuinely feels in the truest form cooperative. Nobody can kind of quarterback it. You all need each other. No. You need each other, not necessarily because one person knows everything, but you need each other because you may just have a player who ends up in a space where they just, at that moment, they have everything that is needed. And it's a great moment. You think, oh my gosh, you found it. You found the door to the underworld. I didn't think it'd be there, but you found it. Okay, brilliant. Right, well, we need to do this now. And 60 minutes, same with The Adventures of Robin Hood. That kind of like family weight, not slight, but family weights experience of working together as a team. Oh, it's addictive. It really is.
Yeah. I've only played the first Horrified and American Monsters. It's just the right amount of macabre, silly, fun
Scooby-Doo
in a board game. It is pretty much Scooby-Doo. I mean, the one thing that this franchise would do to go dramatically wrong is suddenly get really serious about itself, but it's never seemingly taken that path. And I don't get the impression from what you say about Greek Monsters that that's the case either. I think a lot of effort has gone into all the Horrified games in order to build an experience which is really adaptable to the players around the table. Like, not all the players are doing the same thing. Not all of them are just going out there to try and kill the monsters. You're all trying to avoid the monsters and you're all trying to stay alive and collect items. But I think the thing it's always really got going for it is, as you said, Kris, how you defeat them. I still think my favourite one is Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein.
So good.
That in order to defeat them, you've got to make them first feel more human. First of all, it strikes to what makes horror such an interesting genre and probably one of the most, compelling genres, at the moment in terms of exploring ideas and exploring themes and et cetera, et cetera. That's why horror is so good, because you can just do so much stuff in the space. It can be silly, it can be serious, all in the same blush, and the Horrified games, managed to pull that off quite expertly.
I've spent quite a while trying to work out, well, okay, what would the next Horrified game be? What is the next, world of monsters they can draw from? And that question's been answered because
it has.
You flagged up for me, Sam, the other day from Ravensburger that they've got a new Horrified game coming out called World of Monsters. Yeah. And already my partner's excited because there looks to be something of a sphinx on the box cover, as well as like a Cthulhu-esque monster on there. But it sounds to me that it from what I gather, reading between the lines of it, it's a mix and match game, so you can actually play with any of the kind of monsters.
Only with the monsters from Greek Monsters.
Okay.
So you can mix and match with those.
I was actually going to just ask that because I was wondering how varied the kind of the core game was, because usually this kind of game, like in kind of the modern kind of capitalist culture, you could absolutely see we have a base game, we're now going to just sell a variant that you can then use on the base game, and so you can just buy your Greek monsters. Now you can just buy this. So it sounds as though kind of maybe that's not been the case on the earlier stuff, but is that something they're moving towards if you can blend them going forward?
Sounds like it. And because you're right, the gameplay is the same from game to game. You are performing the same actions, even if you're taking down the monsters in new and interesting ways. The only thing that really changes is the map that you're playing on. So it'll be interesting to see how they have altered or have developed the map for the new one in order that it makes it a mix and match with Greek monsters. But yeah, it certainly sounds like maybe there's an attempt here to try and curb a bit of that criticism, where it's just like, well, it's just kind of like is the same, but it'll be a lot cheaper just to release a whole new load of monsters and to stitch them onto what you've got. I will say, though, there is a virtue in where you are playing the game. And by that, I mean the location depicted on the board. It does do a real good job thematically. When you play original Horrified, you're going around a 1950s town in the dark. American Monsters, it's a very, very atypical sort of Hollywood-style American town, with a restaurant and a bar and the high school football ground, all that kind of stuff. It really does add something to the experience when you're actually, I'm going to go and head up to the library to go and get this, and then head back down to, to the lagoon to take on the big lagoon monster. Like, it is. I wouldn't say it's a core part of the game, and you're right, Dan. They probably could have made it a bit more vanilla, and just sold monster packs on top. But I think there is a virtue in the locations. Like, I prefer the American Monsters to the original Horrified, just because that theme and that location chimes with me a little bit more, and I find it a little bit more appealing to play in that arena.
Yeah, I'm really curious to know, because this next one is going to be a beautiful kind of hodgepodge of different monsters from various different cultures. So you've got the Riddling Sphinx, you've got the Yeti, and I apologise for my pronunciation here, the Yangqi, which is a vampire from Chinese folklore. And then on top of that, you've got Cthulhu.
Oh, yeah.
And
the daddy of them all.
So one thing I have learned is that you can own more than one Horrified. That's key. And two, that even though, yes, it is dabbling with horror, that it is by no means horrific at all. No. I think that's a really key thing to say, really. And I'm really looking forward to playing this when it comes out.
I don't know if you've got Mushroom.
Oh, it's such a fun guy, Sam.
For this, what I've been playing. But I did want to share a little bit about Mycelia. And apologies, it is another title from Ravensburger. But I think there's something interesting going on with Mycelia. And it's not just because there is another board game called Mycelia, which was released a year after this version that we've been playing. So it is a bit. Seems to be a bit of a recent spate of board games that have been mushroom based. But hey ho, here we go. Here's the market. So this is Mycelia, and if you were to see it in the shops, it's the Mycelia that
the cute one.
It's the cute one. It looks like Pixar have made a board game like about mushrooms. It's made by Daniel Greiner, and the art is really, really lovely. It's got this, as I said, this sort of Pixar-esque, but not like I hate to like. I think Pixar-esque is sort of thrown around a bit, but I guess what I mean by that is that they've really thought about how to anthropomorphize mushrooms, and like it's not just they've just got a couple of mushrooms and shove some eyes on them. Like they've actually thought about, if you were to bring these mushrooms to life, what kind of qualities would they have? What kind of personalities may they have? Which gives the whole aesthetic of the board game like a really like solid sort of presentation. Anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself to sort of describing what the game is. So Mycelia is actually, on the basis of it, it's two games merged into one. It's your favourite, Dan. It's a deck builder,
whoop, whoop, whoop.
But it's combined with actually something I think you would really enjoy, which is a spatial movement puzzle. So how the game works is everyone starts off with these boards in front of them, and the boards are broken up into a 4x4 grid, and on those grids are different things, like basically like different landscapes. So it could be like water or leaves or soil or greenery. And then at the start of the game, at randomly determined points, people put on these little plastic dewdrops, these blue little bits of plastic in different positions, and then someone places down quite reverently and with a certain amount of respect this like basically tree stump in the middle of the table, and this tree stump represents basically it's in the game, it's called the Shrine of Life, and what you're trying to do is to move these little plastic blue things from your board onto the Shrine of Life. And how you move them is by playing cards. So the cards have on them certain instructions like move one blue thing from a leaf pile north, or move one blue disc or dewdrop from a river tile 2 steps to the right. And what you're aiming to do is to use the cards to manipulate the dewdrops in front of you in order to send them to this shrine that's in the center of the table. First person to get rid of all their dewdrops wins. And that's the game. And it's got a bit of a gimmick to it. I'm not going to lie, the shrine is a little bit of a gimmick. So the idea is that you put the dewdrops into the shrine, has these little holes in it, and when those holes all fill up, someone gets to spin it round, and all the dewdrops come out of it again, and as well as a dice that will tell you where to put some new dewdrops back into your field, into your little tableau in front of you. And that just acts as a little bit of both of us as a timer and a way just to like even the game out at some point. If someone's really like running ahead of it, it kind of like helps just bring some more dewdrops into the game and just like prolong it a little bit. But what you're really looking to do is to buy cards from the shop essentially and build a deck that just allows you to manipulate the dewdrops as much as possible. And that's pretty much the basis of the game.
Well, the one question I have is why mushrooms? Because like from what you've described, like none of that feels thematically like it needs to be mushrooms. And obviously the game design around this is leaning into that. Like the Shrine of Life isn't mushroom based. Kind of like I'm looking at kind of images of kind of the boards and that kind of thing. That's not kind of heavily mushroom. Obviously all your cards are. So why is this the kind of the theme that they've gone with? Where's that narrative come in?
I think personally because mushrooms are something that is recognizable by most people, I would say, potentially. It's not, for example, he says, not being able to come up with an example, it's not something that, would locate it firmly within, say, the English countryside, for example. It's something that is, it appears in all different shapes and sizes, obviously, but it is something that is a kind of a global, dare I say, universal thing.
I think there's also something inherently unknowable about mushrooms. Like, I think everyone obviously knows what they are, but they could be up to anything in the forest, Sam. We just don't know. They grow everywhere and anywhere. They're all funny little shapes and sizes. Some of them look grim. Some of them look practically frightful, and some of them look really cute. And
don't get me wrong. Like I get mushrooms growing in my garden. Some of them look fine. Some of them look positively phallic. But like if you didn't,
at least it's positive.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is very easy, I think, and what the game sort of uses to that effect is building this fantasy world around the mushrooms, this life below the canopy, life below the sort of the covering of leaves. Like they even use leaves as a currency in the game, and all the art that's on the card sort of depicts these mushrooms living out this fantastical forest life that is unknown to us. Like this, like the mushrooms themselves, and mycelia as a term refers to like the root structure that like brings basically all the mushrooms together. Like I think they refer to it in the Last of Us TV series, actually, about this idea of like it's the root structure of the fungus, which is actually more deadly and more scary than the people, because it connects.
It's rhizomatic.
Yeah, where it connects them all together through this almost like singular organism. So the way I've kind of always imagined mycelia when we're playing it is it's like it's not really me moving these dewdrops around. It's the responsibility of these characterful mushrooms. And the fact that I think they are mushrooms just, as I said, plays into this unknowable nature of them. And also, you know, by using a term like mycelia, it's very easy to see how, like, you know, you can imagine those roots all spread across the board in front of you, and that's how they communicate with each other. That's how they know to move one dewdrop here, and then that's going to move that one there, and then that's going to knock that into that one and bash that one, and oh, here we go, knock them back into the little turny tree stump in the middle.
I mean, another perk of that also is when you're playing a mushroom board game, you can never lose it and you can never win it because we all win. Because we're all connected. We're all part of this beautiful kind of like rhizomatic structure. Because, you know, the largest, I remember somebody telling me once, well, somebody told me 2 facts that changed my perspective on mushrooms. One was the largest organism in the world is a mushroom. Yes. And second, and this will either put you off mushrooms or put you onto them.
Yeah.
Turn me off or turn me on. Go for it.
Mushrooms are the fruit of a fungus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, definitely.
That sounds lovely.
Right. Now, the elephant in the room of this game, as far as I see it, is this whopping great big tree stump, as you say, Sam, which...
Yes, 100%.
You said was a little bit of a faff to assemble.
Feels unnecessary.
I watched a review of this game where, from a very big, well-known YouTube board game review, where the reviewer really really threw a lot of shade at this particular feature, saying, why not just use a dice? And
yeah,
I suppose through cold hard logic, I go, yes, okay. But then again, why have art? And
yes,
I really love...
Why have any fun?
Exactly. You know, we were just waxing lyrical about the aesthetics and art within the previous games, and this is no different, really. Art isn't just lovely pictures on a board game box or on a board. It's something that can be sculptural or architectural, so a centerpiece like that makes it an event. So rather than just rolling a dice, which is something that, you know, you may not necessarily be paying attention to, and it's something that is found in lots of games, having this thing turning in the center, watching those dewdrops disappear or get absorbed into this tree and then kind of dissipate into the ground beneath, thematically it works. I don't think it's overproduced. We've all seen overproduced games that a lot of these aforementioned reviewers do not bat an eyelid at, in big, huge, hefty Kickstarter games. This is not that. It's something that makes the game distinctive, different, and plays into that really lovely, pleasant atmosphere that's not running counter to the art. In fact, it's actually strengthening the quality of the atmosphere that kind of comes from the artwork within it. I love this, Dan, because sometimes I get lost in deck builders when I can't visualize where the cards are, because I have to think about where they are in the deck, but then also where they're going to be when I'm playing them, and how some cards can only be played in relation to others because it won't activate certain bits of them. And when I haven't got somewhere to play them into, I can find that quite tricky. What I love about Mycelia is I've got a deck builder that, yes, it is light, but also appeals to me as a spatial puzzle solver, because I'm playing cards allow me to move something that is already there in front of me. I haven't got to keep that in my mind. I can just look at what's in front of me when I am playing my cards. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, you have to play every card that you draw.
Yeah.
So it's not the case of, oh, well, I play this two, but I've got to hold one back. No, you play everything. So it's just about then, it's a simple case of what order do I play these cards in?
I think going back to the tree stump in the middle, I think that there is a version of this game that is cheaper in a smaller box and doesn't come with the tree stump, but still sort of operates in a very, very similar fashion. What would I prefer? I think, thinking about it, there's also the question about who is this game being made for, and looking at the art and the presentation of it, I think it's very much being skewed to a younger audience than perhaps some reviewers are happy to sort of take into consideration. And the reason why you've got that big tree stump there, it's a very, very strong visual aid to what you're actually aiming to do as a player. And I think for someone who's very young, and especially, learning about, not only have they got to learn about what, deck building is, but also like spatial manipulation and moving things and being economic with what you're doing and moving things in the right direction. It really helps having a big, solid, inviting thing in the center to kind of hold a bit of that attention, especially if you're much younger inclined. I think, for an adult, we can just imagine and just roll a dice. That's fine. I just think that for a younger person, they just need something a lot more tangible and tactile to give them the emphasis and the motivation to actually complete this puzzle.
I think that's a good point, actually. When I think about kind of some of the games that my 6-year-old has enjoyed, like he's played like the Bluey game, which has got like a big spinner in the middle of it, so that you can there is a center point for the game. He really likes Outfoxed, that kind of Kris you got for me through kind of one of our Secret Santas, and like that has the kind of the large plastic kind of card holder that gives you a reveal throughout the game. So again, it's not necessarily in a board, but it's a centerpiece prop that enables you to do that. And I think that there is an element of that that just makes the whole process a little bit easier to comprehend for kind of younger kids kind of playing this. I mean, looking at kind of Board Game Geek has this kind of rated around 8 or 9. So I think the complexity of it would be kind of beyond like my little boy. But I think that rule still stands, that having that centerpiece would make the whole thing just a bit more accessible, because it kind of allows you to kind of, because it's such a strong image, you can almost separate it from the rest of the game, and okay, that's dealt with because that's a contained element, and I can worry about the other things separately rather than having to have my brain thinking about all different aspects. I think there's just a way of visually and kind of physically on the board separating the components so you can comprehend it all a little easier.
We did threaten at the beginning of this podcast to turn it into a subscription. So I thought, what are the weirdest subscriptions that you can get? So I found, listverse.com gives us the top 10 most bizarre subscription magazines that you can buy. Well, you've got to sign up for one. Which one are you signing up for?
Got it.
So there's Emu Today and Tomorrow.
Done.
Oh, okay.
I never want to go to a casino with you, Dan.
Some of the some of the topics covered in this issue: more than oil and meat, using emus as a whole.
I've eaten emu.
Have you?
I had it when I was in Australia. I ate emu. I ate kangaroo. And there was another, and camel. I think I had camel as well.
Oh, no, that's a hell of a sandwich.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'd be interested in the next magazine, which is Spudman.
Now, this sounds like a graphic novel type magazine.
No, it's basically the magazine about potatoes.
Okay, so we've got emu, we've got potatoes. Strong start.
Is Spudman weekly, Sam?
Published 8 times a year.
That's odd.
That's a really odd. That's not quarterly.
8 times a year.
We take Christmas off. Jeff's birthday's in June, so we don't do that.
The next one is Girls and Corpses.
I think it's best we skip past that one.
Yep. Elevator World is next.
My thinking is I'm going to be drawn to the one that I think has the least kind of scope for being a regular issue, and that's the one I want to go for because I want to see how they stretch it out. I think Elevator Monthly might be leading the pack at the moment.
The next one is Practical Sheep.
Practical sheep.
sheep.
None of these lazy sheep.
And this edition includes a Ram MOT. Is he ready for action?
Gordon Bennett.
Wow.
Wowzer.
Then there's the 14 Times, which is a well-known magazine. So I'm not really quite sure why it's in the in amongst all these. Here is the magazine for multiples since 1984. It's the Twins magazine.
That's a magazine for multiples. That's a great tagline.
Conversations and Your Twins. 7 tips for getting the words flowing.
So is this for people who are twins and want to be better twins?
I think so.
Do you have a twin but don't know how to talk to them? Get this magazine about twins.
Yeah, or 10 tips for flying with twin babies.
So it's not about the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito film. It's not like a love letter to that. It is about just twins in general.
No, it isn't. No. It's also bi-monthly, that magazine, so
Wow.
kind of feels appropriate. The next one is called Miniature Donkey Talk.
That sounds like more of a radio show than... My sister, when she was younger, she used to read a magazine called Girl Talk. I wonder if it's in the same sort of ilk.
Oh, so you're thinking it's actually it's a magazine for miniature donkeys as opposed to kind of just talking about miniature donkeys.
Right, the next one's called Pro Monthly. Portable Restroom Operators.
I mean, James Bond was an operative for MI6.
He was.
I mean, I love that. What do you do? Well, I'm a pro.
Is there really a demand for a magazine for Portaloo operators?
A fresh start, a new restroom venture allows one Pennsylvania family to work together happily ever after.
Clearly there is, Dan.
So the last one, and I don't really know if this is true or not. What's Crappy Now all about?
I'm going to go with kind of like the bad side of parenting. Like horror parenting horror stories.
Okay.
So what's crappy now? Is that what you said?
No, yeah. Well, it's no. The magazine is called Crappy Now.
Crappy now.
Oh, the magazine's not called What's Crappy Now.
No, it's called Crappy Now.
Is it just like, is it like some kind of satire about, oh God, all the crap stuff that's going on in the world? Like a satire of that some sort?
No.
Is it toilets, Sam?
No.
Is it a spin-off of Pro Monthly?
Yeah. Supplement, like the Beano and the Dandy.
So you're gonna kick yourselves. You're gonna kick yourselves because obviously the crappie is a freshwater fish in America.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it's a whole magazine dedicated to a very, very specific fish.
Wow.
Wow. What do I choose? Such a bountiful selection of subscriptions.
I know mine.
Okay, go for it.
It's the donkey one, Sam.
All right, okay.
I'm going to look at this seriously, okay? I'm not just going to go in with the funny one. I've thought about this. I think the one I'm going to go with is Elevator World. Because my thinking is that's all about elevators. You're going to have some stuff of here's the new tech, all that stuff. I like tech, that's fine. But you're also elevators in tall buildings. You can have some nice photography. You can have some nice views of beautiful landscapes and nice buildings. So I think it'd be quite a pleasant thing to look at.
If you've got a magazine that you think we should be subscribing to, then do let us know. stayinginpod@gmail.com.
Or even just let us know if there's any magazines you are actually subscribed to, because I mean, I get the National Trust, I think, every month or so. That's about it for me, magazine subscriptions.
It's part of the deal, though, isn't it? When you're a member, I'm subscribed to Senate, of course.
Oh, brilliant! Yes,
a wonderful board game magazine that I thoroughly recommend. But yeah, I've not been subscribed to anything since Bugs.
Oh my!
Remember Bugs?
I have a tea subscription.
Okay, cool.
And you read your tea leaves, of course.
I think that's the only subscription I think I've probably ever had.
I mean, subscriptions were kind of like, for me, the big period of subscriptions as an adult was lockdown, where
everyone was doing
I had my cider subscription. Yeah, exactly. There were beer subscriptions, cider subscriptions. I had the Lego subscription for a while. Board game rental subscription. Loads of stuff during that time.
So if there's a subscription, magazine or otherwise, that we're missing out on, stayinginpod@gmail.com. You can see what we're up to be honest, when we can be fussed to do it. Instagram @stayinginpod. And if I can get a picture of Kris in the costume he's meant to be wearing, or he meant to have worn a few weekends ago, that's definitely going up there.
You'll have to put it with the explicit rating, though. Make sure you do that.
Yeah, I mean, for 40 quid, I thought I was going to be getting more than I got, but hey ho, it's not going to be covering up much. And
how big's the fig leaf?
Well, it's smaller now. You've lost your appendix, and
we're just going with this, aren't we? Yeah, let's just
yeah, we are. Yeah. What else is there? There's a Spotify playlist, which, Kris, I'm going to have to talk about Jusant.
Oh my gosh!
At some point, just so we can get some of the Jusant soundtrack added to Spotify, because it's one of the best video game soundtracks I've heard in a very long while, probably since Tunic. So comes highly recommended from me. And so if you go to the show notes, you can find out all about the Spotify playlist and links to that. If you'd like to have a single point where you can see all of the board games that we've talked about, then head on over to Board Game Geek, where we've got a curated page on there. And if you'd like to do a similar thing but with video games, head to Steam, where we've got all the video games we've ever talked about on the show, all listed there in one place. Right. Things are about to get wet because we're off to the beach.
Oh, more rafting.
Stag.
That was weird.